The Alabama Crimson Tide watch their dynasty paying off the uprights. Tom Herman and the Texas Longhorns have some major holes to fill on the coaching staff. And how about them Cowboys back to their losing ways? This is the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand, although Tom Herman did say they were 1-0 10 times last season.
Feinbaum, I'll give him like half a point.
Dude, you like Feinbaum way too much.
Yeah, all right. I'm like I'm the Feinbaum of this show.
By the way, that looks Ohio State. Is that an omen? Give me that Longhorn hat.
Oh man!
Hook him, baby.
All right, he's pulling the torso.
For the last time this semester, welcome in to the 1-0 Sports Show. I'm Thomas Fitch. This guy's Turner Barnes, Robert Trevino. We know he was listed as questionable. Yeah. He is out today. Turner Barnes, the senior, stepping up in his spot. This is his last time as a student on TSTV.
Last time on TSTV. I'm excited.
All right, so let's get into our who's hot, who's not. You're going to be taking Robert's who's hot and who's not. My who's hot, though, Lamar Jackson. Woo. Talk about a season that this guy is having. You look at what he has done so far, 2,500 passing yards, as well as 977 rushing yards, 32 touchdowns. He has been electric. And, you know, it's more than just him. It's the way that John Harbaugh has worked this team around him. You know, a 10-2 record. You look at the teams that they've beat recently, the 49ers, the Patriots, the Rams. Not just walk in the park games, but it's all been because Lamar Jackson has been leading this team so well. And they're Super Bowl contenders without a doubt because Lamar Jackson is an MVP contender. Who's not for me? You should have seen it coming. You said it before, Turner. How about them Cowboys? How about them Cowboys? Tell you what, Cowboys lost 3 straight games. Not only that, of their last 10 games, they've lost 7 of those last 10. They are struggling. Jason Garrett, still the coach, hasn't been fired. Jerry Jones has got to make a decision. I mean, the guy who fired Tom Landry and Jimmy Johnson has kept Jason Garrett here for most of the last decade. Turner?
Yeah, it's not looking good in Dallas right now.
It's not looking good in Dallas, but for us?
Not looking great.
For us, it's looking...
For us, yeah.
It's looking fantastic.
Fun to talk about. But
now for you, Turner.
For me...
Who's hot?
Me, I personally came up with this all by myself.
Yep.
The anti-Alabama Twitter is hot right now.
It is.
It's been a while since we've seen anti-Alabama Twitter, but they are on fire. People are calling for Nick Saban's head, saying dissolve the program. Anti-Alabama Twitter, you're hot.
You're hot, and it's finally time that we can. It doesn't happen much, and we're going to talk about how rare this is. But it doesn't happen much when Alabama loses and we get to celebrate and not only lose, but lose twice in a season.
Yeah.
So
in very quick succession.
Exactly.
As well.
So who's not?
My who's not is USC.
Yep.
Keeping Clay Helton around. I mean, what are you doing at USC? They had aspirations to get much bigger coaching candidates. And also, it's not hot for Texas fans because their offensive coordinator, Graham Harrell, might be staying around as well. So not hot for USC
Yeah,
or for Texas.
There go the Urban to USC, or a lot of people say Chris Peterson. Yeah. He resigned from Washington, and people thought, was he just going to travel down to USC? But personally, I don't know if Clay Helton was, or if it was the worst move, letting go of Clay Helton. You look at what this team has done since they lose JT Daniels, their starter, their former 5-star, to an injury at the beginning of the season. They've put together a good season with so many injuries.
Yeah, and I'm going to lean that one on Graham Harrell a little bit. I think he's a phenomenal offensive coordinator.
Right, and there's a reason he's getting looks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have one more who's not. It's us.
Us.
Well, and especially
hey, I had some bad takes
me and Robert, but Turner, but let's go ahead and roll this tape.
I'm gonna go. I mean, dark horse, right? You can't choose the Dodgers, you can't choose the Astros, you can't choose the Yankees. Dude, the Natties, man.
Dude, get out of here.
Nationals, you said they never won anything. You said this other person, they never won anything. They never won it. They never won anything, Daniel. They have never won
And they're
anything.
a Washington team. Washington teams don't win in the playoffs.
The kick in, here it comes. Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! Swing and a miss! And a World Series Game 7 winning Curly W.
3 and 4. So 3, I have Michigan. I believe in Jim Harbaugh. I think this is the team that can finally break through, finally win the Big Ten, and make it to the college football playoff. Number 4, I was debating between a couple teams, but you got to go with the Texas Longhorns.
And 4, I got to stick with one of these teams. Michigan coming in number 4.
I'm selling LSU.
Wow.
Their schedule is very tough. I think
Wow.
Alabama will show themselves to be the better team within the SEC West, and I think this year college football is too competitive as a whole on varying conferences for a team to not make their conference championship game and still make the playoffs.
He said it should be an LSU QB at Heisman talks. I'm going to be real here. I haven't watched much Joe Burrow, but if I know anything about LSU QBs, I'm going to wait until I see
Yeah, I mean,
what he could do. Now, granted, he is a transfer,
yeah,
but
I'm not exactly going to vote, Jake Coker in for a Heisman. So I mean, this is kind of the same vibe. But
Joe Burrow is just Jake Coker with legs.
No.
Jake Coker with legs. Jake Coker with legs. Jake Coker with legs.
Dak Prescott is good enough to lead these Cowboys to the Super Bowl.
no way.
This is the year for the Cowboys.
No,
If it's going to be a year, it's going to be this year. They're a top 3 team within the NFC.
They are not a top 3 team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Go ahead and buy this team. And
Number 4, Oklahoma. They just look so good. They're going to run the table 12-0 probably, 13-0 I think.
my number 1 has stayed the same. Every week this year, Alabama, I know they're without Tua, but look what they did. Without Tua, they put up 48 or 41 points and a half against Arkansas. But the Oregon Ducks,
They're throwing the O up
throwing
today.
the O up, the Ducks are making the top 4.
Man.
That, you look back on that and, we were saying, well, that's playing. I think Robert made most of his worst takes when you were on. So it's fitting that you're hosting in his place today. But
Yeah, and I'm just glad that they cut out the parts because they thought Robert was going to be
Because we thought,
there. Because I had some horrible takes as well, especially whenever, just right after Robert was talking about how great the Cowboys were, I was cheering them on. I was right behind them.
I know.
So I'm glad they cut that part out.
And you can't say that we don't keep ourselves accountable on this show.
Yeah.
All right, next. Dynasty's over. Is it the end of the world as we know it? Both the Patriots and Alabama losing the same weekend. Is this a sign of the times, Turner?
Well, I tell you what, Thomas. I wish I could say that it was, but it's not. And I really wish I could say that it was. But Alabama, they lost Tua. So that's a big part of what has happened to them this year. And the Patriots, Tom Brady's getting a little bit older, but both of these teams have probably, arguably, the best coach of all time in their respective positions with Nick Saban and Bill Belichick. Both of these teams are going to be back. Maybe not to the extent of dominance that they have been over the course of our lifetimes,
Right.
but they will be back.
Right. Well, and for the Patriots, just their second loss of the season. I mean, they're what, 10-2.
Yeah, they're 10-2.
So here we are. Ravens could win the Super Bowl 10-2. The Patriots lose their second game. It's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
And it's not like they have the best defense in the
And
NFL.
that's, and I think, a lot of reasons for people saying the Patriots is 'cause Tom Brady hasn't looked great. But again, it goes back to the coach. Bill Belichick is still coaching. Nick Saban is still coaching for Alabama. What I will say about Nick Saban, you look at Alabama's last couple losses, you look at Auburn, you look at LSU, you look at Clemson, you look at Georgia. All of those is where they've been going against some of the top offenses. And even when they played Oklahoma last year and Oklahoma was able to put up points, their defense is what has struggled the last 2 or 3 years when their offense has improved. And you really look at, it's since that A&M loss. It's since they lost to A&M with Johnny Manziel. Nick Saban kind of overhauled his program into saying, we're going to be offensive. But what that has meant is that they've lacked some on the defensive side. But if we know anything about Nick Saban, it's that if one thing is lacking, he is going to more than make up for it. And I promise you this defense will be better next year.
Yeah, and this is a young defense too, inexperienced.
Yeah.
They have a lot of people returning to that defense, so they're going to be okay.
All right, next up, we have a delete your Twitter. This goes to no one else but the Houston Rockets. Why the Houston Rockets? Against the Spurs. The Rockets were up by as much as 22. They're up 16 here. Watch this dunk. It goes in, he comes out, It's a point, but the officials say that it didn't count. So the Spurs come back from the deficit. Again, trailed as much as 22 in this game, force overtime, and in double overtime, DeMar DeRozan takes the charge, so the Spurs win. But here's what happened. When Harden missed the dunk, the Rockets complained about it.
Yeah.
They complained so long they missed their 30-second window to review it in the game. So that didn't happen. Now they're protesting the loss. They want the NBA to go back and make the teams replay it with 7 minutes and 20 seconds left in the fourth quarter.
If you're not going to replay the NFC
December
Championship game from a while back, then the NFC Championship game,
right.
If you're not going to replay that, you're definitely not going to replay an NBA game in December.
In December. There's 81 others.
And you also blew the lead after that.
Right.
Just finish the game.
This is the most Houston thing of like, oh man, we lost. We got to go make up for it. Unreal.
We can't lose unless something bad happens to us.
All right, finally, ending off this little block with the Fine Bomb of the week. And again, finishing off the semester full circle, he was the first Fine Bomb of the week, and the last Fine Bomb of the week goes to Paul Feinbaum. Let's hear what he had to say on Get Up the other morning.
Let me give you, Paul Feinbaum, the following scenarios, okay? Oklahoma beats Baylor and wins the Big 12. Utah beats Oregon and wins the Pac-12. And LSU takes care of business against Georgia. Who gets the fourth spot?
Oklahoma's getting in. Because let's be honest, the country does not want to see Utah in the college football playoff. I'm sorry. I mean, it's Utah. So
I got news for you. Oklahoma ain't going to be any better.
Well, they may not be any better, but they're going to look a lot better.
And I mean, this is absurd. It is the most Paul Feinbaum thing to say, I haven't watched this team this year yet, so I don't believe they should be in the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see Utah in the playoff.
Yeah. Now, I tell you what, if you're really trying to be Robert doesn't want Utah in the playoffs. So if you want to play devil's advocate.
Paul Feinbaum is absolutely correct. I think
there we go. There's Robert.
Alabama, even without going to the conference championship game, should still be in. I still have them at my number 3 spot. That's right, Thomas. Okay,
Yep.
Paul Feinbaum.
Yep.
He knows what he's talking about.
And that'll be on Twitter. It's absurd for Paul Feinbaum to just look at this team and say, what have they done? Because what they've done is won games by an average of a little over 27 points. Even if you include the USC game, their margin of victory, still 24 points. That's pretty darn good. I'm sorry that they play past your bedtime, Paul.
Yeah.
But guess what? This Utah team is for real. I don't think they're going to win in the first round of the playoff, but I think they get there, and I think they give, whether it's LSU or Ohio State, I think they give them a pretty good run for their money, at least better than a lot of other people think.
Yeah, they have the number 3 scoring defense in the country this year. They're not a pushover. They have a great offense, a great defense. It's going to be fun to watch them in the playoff.
If they can make it.
If they make it, of
And
course.
we'll be talking more about the playoffs also when we come back. Daniel Shee's going to join us to talk about, recap the Texas football season and talk about all the coaching changes that have happened. Stick around. Welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. Now joining us to talk Texas football, Daniel Shee.
How's it going, guys?
Recurring guest of the show,
Long time no
Daniel
see.
Shee. All right, so let's just start. Texas finishes the season 7-5.
Right.
Couple disappointing losses towards the end, but they finish with a pretty convincing win against Tech. What are you saying at this point?
I think Texas is the England of world soccer. I think.
Explain this to people who.
For the viewers who may not know
are
it,
just-
So England, like they're the proudest people.
Right.
Among
I mean, I know like
everybody.
Premier League is big.
I mean, I'm talking about like
like
in
World
the
Cup.
World
Yeah,
Cup.
that's
So,
true.
like,
That's true. They
the
never
fans
do
are the
anything.
pride. Like they have the most pride and they have the most money. They're in like the fans are in it every single time. But they always lose to France. They always lose to Germany. They always lose to Belgium.
Brazil.
They lose to Iceland sometimes, just like Texas loses to Kansas. You know.
Well,
So-
no, hold up. Iceland's run in the World Cup. Okay, I know a little bit about
Iceland-
soccer. I know enough about soccer to say that Iceland is a better team comparatively than Kansas
Well,
football.
Iceland with a population of less than 300,000. As England, you should
Iceland
have
was
beaten
in
them,
like
but-
the Euro final.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Euros.
All
They
right,
lost
let's
to the
go
Euros.
back to Texas football.
England
I
loses-
don't. This is. I don't want
Anyways,
soccer.
so
I don't want soccer.
Texas is the England of world soccer, in which you have you have a really good fan base. You have all the money in the world.
Yeah.
But the expectations of the fans are probably not as high as the product on the field, and that's definitely true for the last 10 years. And you have to look yourself in the mirror. You have you have 3 head coaches already. You have a lot of assistant coaches here. Probably the coaches is probably not the problem. You have to look yourself in the mirror sometimes to see what's wrong with the program. Thankfully, CDC's now in, so he's starting to make some changes. But again, you got to look yourself in the mirror, and that's the hardest part to do, and see, and sometimes admit maybe we're just not there yet. And I think that's totally fine because you've been mediocre in the last 10 years.
We'll get to some coaching changes in a little bit, but how do you feel Coach Tom Herman has, where would you say you were at through year 3, minus a bowl game?
Well, that's a big part because they can still go out and win the 8th game, right?
Right.
And so they could finish
And
8
8 and 5 was a lot better than 7 and 6.
Exactly. And winning, you being at 85 is saying that we're starting at where Mack Brown left.
Right.
And that is, I will take that because after 3 years of Charlie Strong, you will go back to the Mack Brown era.
Right. Again, the most wins that Charlie ever had was 6.
Right.
And so if you're saying Charlie Strong, you get 6 wins, you're kind of happy. Tom Herman, you get 8 wins and you're disappointed. I think that's where you get to a level of a program where you're saying, okay, these are the building steps where we can be disappointed with 8 wins.
Yeah, and I think it was ridiculous from the beginning if you're gonna fire Tom Herman this year, because what you're saying is you're gonna get Tom Herman the same amount of time as Charlie Strong, even though the worst case scenario as of before the Texas Tech game, but right now the worst case scenario is still better than every single year that Charlie Strong has, and he gave you a 10-win season, Big 12 championship appearance, and a Sugar Bowl win. What do you want? What else do you want?
And some highly touted recruiting classes.
Exactly.
Right.
This guy isn't just throwing together what Charlie had. He's bringing in a lot of talent as well, and that's a big part of coaching in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of guys bring up, through 3 years, Herman doesn't have very many draft picks. Well, he's working with Charlie's guys.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between bringing your own guys and developing them for years versus bringing these guys and saying, we're going to change up some stuff.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame. And you look at some of these guys, Sam Cosmi went from like a 3-star recruit to being a freshman All-American. Kenyatta Watson all of a sudden played last week, and all of a sudden people are talking about him, the freshman. So there's a lot of stars. I think these next 2 years are big for Tom Herman.
Yes.
Yeah, because again, like you said, it's like you're baking a muffin, just like Charlie Strong said. You're baking a cake, you're like a muffin, and then suddenly when you're about to put the icing on, your mom comes and you're like, by the way, we're making a brownie, and you're like, what? And then so you have to go in there and then we have to remake everything. It's like what Tom Herman, you just can't judge Tom Herman's 3 years like you did with Charlie Strong.
Yeah, Daniel, you're making me hungry.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people with coaching these days, they try to move on way too quick. Mm-hmm. And Darryl Royal thought he was going to be fired before he went on his run at Texas. Nick Saban had some struggles, not necessarily at Alabama, but said struggles. Dabo Swinney, we've talked about what Dabo's first 3 years were like. Gus Malzahn has been threatened to be fired at least 3 times at Auburn.
Yeah, that's what I mean by you have to look yourself in the mirror, because it doesn't matter if you're Texas, USC, or Baylor. Well, Baylor, okay. It doesn't matter if Texas, USC, or Oklahoma State. It's going to take more than 3 years to beat Alabama.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how much money you have or how great of an athletic director you have or how great of a fan base you have. At the end of the day, the coaches and the players are what's developing in the practice fields that 90% of the time the fans are not there.
Yeah. And
so when you as a fan, you try to go in there, and the third year you're like, how are they not improving? How are they not winning 10 games? Well, that's just being ignorant to me. And that is really, I think that's a big problem with the program. Fans and programs have to look themselves in the mirror and say, are we being realistic here? And I think 8 wins in the third year for Tom Herman is really good. And if you want to fire Tom Herman, you're not being realistic.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk coaching changes. Mm-hmm. So Texas fires Drew Maringer, fires Todd Orlando. Tim Beck not fired, but he's demoted from the offensive coordinator. He will just go back to coaching quarterbacks. Daniel, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with these coaching changes?
Well, I think the order of things in which things happened was had a problem with that more than the actual decisions, because it was Todd Orlando was fired first. And then an hour later, you hear about maybe Tim Beck will be demoted. I was shocked when Todd Orlando was fired, because last 4 games of the season, when you had some of your starters back, don't forget the defense was really banged up in the worst stretch of the defense during the season. It just happened that the 3 of the 4 games that they lost to, the defense kept the team in the game.
Right. They gave up 24 points the last 4 games.
Yeah, and that's why. And the offense was the one that couldn't move the ball. And so, when you look, LSU. It's against the LSU offense that's killing everybody right now. OU. You still gave the offense a chance to come back in the fourth quarter against OU. And Iowa State and TCU. Against TCU, they have 3 interceptions. Well, the offense gave up 3 interceptions, and you still somehow gave up less than 35.
Yeah.
And so when you think on the road, and when you think about that, the defense didn't disappoint anybody that much. It's just the cohesiveness in which the offense and defense never seemed to play well at the same time during the Tom Herman era. Throughout the Tom Herman era, it's either the offense is really good and defense is suspect, or the other way around. They never played at the same level. But Tim Beck, I think I agree with Tim Beck going to demoted as a quarterback coach, because he did a good job developing Sam, and he didn't do a good job play calling. I think it was more than fair for him to stay with Sam and just finish Sam's career in Texas with the same coach.
I agree. I'll play a little devil's advocate with you on Todd Orlando, and I was personally surprised when I saw that, but I think, again, we don't exactly know everything that's going on behind the program. We don't know. A lot of times, Tom Herman's going to see more than we see, and so he's going to be looking, and maybe he saw some stuff that he didn't feel that Todd Orlando was adjusting enough in game, or we don't know what that was. Another thing, we were talking about Graham Harrell earlier and how he's done good even with a banged up USC offense. That's a lot of times when you see coordinators shine is when they can still succeed with injuries. And granted, Texas dealt with a lot of injuries on the defensive end, but there comes a point where you say, look, Texas is having these star-studded recruiting classes. When you're going from a 5-star to a 4-star, it should be a little drop-off, maybe not as big as we saw.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, with the injury thing, you're definitely right. Defense, you see it a little bit more whenever you have a lot of injuries, because whenever you have injuries in the defensive secondary especially, you can't do everything you want to do. And with Todd Orlando, he likes to bring pressure. And whenever you bring pressure, that opens up holes in secondary. So it's kind of like a paradox. But you definitely, at some point, there's no more excuses. At some point, injuries can't be an excuse anymore.
And one more thing, as I want to agree with the injuries and such, think about this defense that let go 8 seniors last year. And so you're coming in with a brand new defense. Yeah. And 4 games into it, half of that is gone. So I think that's just one thing I'll give Todd Orlando. But I hate to see him leave, because he did such a good job, and you paid him so much money, and then you paid more just to.
Well, and we have to all agree, though, Drew Manager being fired, we're all in agreement. I mean, the stuff the reports about that are wild. Yeah. I've never really heard about that at a program where you have a position coach, when everything else is going, for the most part, pretty fine. A position coach slandering the head coach, slandering it to the players, pretty terrible.
And the receivers are regressed.
Yeah. And who's surprised at this point?
Yeah, we started the season saying, I started the season saying the receivers are the one I'm most confident with because of the O-line being so young, the defense being so young, but you have such a deep receiving core. And now, the OU game was the start of the receivers just dropping passes, tipping passes,
losing confidence.
If the receivers can do it, well, then who can help Sam?
Right. Well, and how are you going to have confidence in yourself when you don't have confidence in the coach that's putting you on the field?
Exactly.
Yeah. And just real quick, I think another thing that kind of hurt Sam's confidence in these receivers is that the freshman receivers were not running crisp routes at all this season, and a lot of that has to do with coaching.
Right. Yeah, that throws them off. Last question for you, Daniel. What bowl game do you see Texas going in? And who do you think would be the best team for Texas to face?
I honestly love to see a Texas USC at the Immobile. I know that it's going to be tough because the Pac-12 has, I think, one, if not two bowls before the Alamo. And
Well,
then you still have the
yeah,
Cotton
again,
Bowl.
it kind of depends on if Oregon makes New Year's
Right.
6 and if the loser of the Big 12 makes a New Year's
Right,
6.
and you still have like the Cotton Bowl to think about because it's an at-large, even though they sometimes bring in a group of 5 team.
Right.
I mean, again, Texas, it's a classic. USC is going through a turmoil with Clay Helton being
Right, he's fired, he's not fired.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see a good fan, show up. A lot of fans showing up at the Alamo Bowl rather than in Florida. And to be honest, I don't care about just taking the bus to Alamo because I'll be in Taiwan, so it's just gonna be in front of on my phone. Doesn't matter if it's in Florida or San Antonio. So Alamo Bowl, you get much more money. It's a better bowl than Camping World, and you might face the USC team, which again is another college.
I think it would be a very fairly even matchup. Now, I know you're a big Mack Brown guy. We're going to talk about him later on the show, but what are your thoughts on the potential, very slight, but potential of Texas UNC in the Camping World Bowl?
I love. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Well, Daniel, thanks for joining us. When we come back, we're going to be talking all about the college football playoff, and then after that, we have our spread predictions with the legend himself, James Grant. Stick around. Welcome in to the 1-0 Sports locker room. Last time in the locker room in 2019, and now joining us, Adam Ogburn. And let's talk conference championships. We're gonna go and we're gonna start. We're gonna break them down and give some predictions, and then we'll go and give some college football playoff scenarios. Let's start with the Pac-12. We got Utah, we got Oregon. Utah potentially a win away from a college football playoff, but Oregon trying to play spoiler. What are y'all seeing in this matchup?
Well, Justin Herbert, he's going to have to lead the way for Oregon. They're coming off that frustrating loss to Arizona State, which obviously dropped them out of playoff contention. So they've got a trio of running backs, really talented. So we'll see. Utah, though, has been dominating opponents in the Pac-12. You got Tyler Huntley making plays. So it should be a really good matchup. Friday night tonight, so it's coming up tonight.
That's right. That is tonight. I forgot, man. Happy birthday to us.
Awesome. I know what I'm doing tonight. All right, sweet. I didn't even think about that.
We're big journalists on this show. Turner, what do you see in this matchup?
Well, I think if you're Oregon and if you subscribe to the conference, our conference needs to look good. If you're Oregon, you throw the game. Because Oregon can't make it to the playoff. Well, Utah can, so just lose big if you're Oregon.
Right, and if Oregon well, I guess no matter what, they got a potential shot at the Rose Bowl.
Yes.
Because if Utah wins and makes it in,
then they go in. So Oregon, come on.
Yeah, well,
I want to see Utah in the playoff. That's all.
Well, and Oregon certainly didn't do Utah any favors by losing to Arizona State a couple weeks ago. If they had won that game and all of a sudden it's a top 10 matchup, that looks a lot better for Utah. But you bring up Tyler Huntley. I mean, this guy, outside of Tua before he got injured, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, he's been a top 5 quarterback in the NCAA this year. He's just been under the radar, as we talked with Paul Feinbaum. He's just playing a little bit later. But if you turn on the TV at like 10:30 at night, this guy is tearing things up. And I mentioned earlier, Utah winning games by an average of 27 points this season. They're really good. Let's move to the ACC, though. Clemson taking on Virginia. Here's a fun fact. From the Coastal Division, we've gotten, over the last 7 years, 7 different teams. Each team has had a chance to either lose to Florida State or Clemson, essentially, in the ACC championship game. But is this a year that somebody finally beats Clemson? Can Virginia do it?
No. They can't. I mean, Bryce Perkins is their do-it-all quarterback. He actually leads the team in rushing, too. So he'll try to make plays. But, I mean, this is Clemson. They've blown, aside from North Carolina, who hung around with them, they've blown everyone away. Trevor Lawrence will make plays. Travis Etienne, ACC Player of the Year.
Yeah.
He's going to run it. I don't think this game's going to be close. I think Clemson's going to run away with this.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Do it.
Okay, hear me out.
Tell me Virginia's going to win.
Hear me out. Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, the whole starting defense, and Dabo Swinney all come down with the flu.
I was going to say, that's the only possibility.
None of them play. Virginia might lose by 14.
Yeah, look, I props to this Virginia team for making it. It's big for them just to be in this game, but we were talking about it before the show. Clemson, they've only given up, they average 10 points a game to their opponents. Virginia's going to have trouble scoring. I mean, it's this defense has been so good that the offense has been able to struggle a little bit, but the offense has picked up. They're gaining confidence. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne. I mean, Etienne is playing on another level right now. It's hard for me to think that Virginia could win, but we've seen crazier things in college football. Speaking of another game where we would need to see crazier things, Wisconsin against number 1 Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. Is this an upset possibility?
No. No, because, I mean, and they played earlier in the year, and Ohio State blew the windows off of Wisconsin. And so, I mean, Justin Fields, he's going to make plays. J.K. Dobbins. I mean, Ohio State's just loaded offensively. And Wisconsin's not made for shootouts. They do have one of the top 10 scoring defenses, but so does Ohio State. I mean, Chase Young is going to get pressure.
He's so good.
Jonathan Taylor, he'll be the one to watch out for. He's going to have a massive game for Wisconsin to have a chance. But I think this is, again, we've seen Ohio State just blow everyone away, even Michigan in the rivalry game, which are usually closer. So I think I'd take Ohio State here, probably by a couple touchdowns.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to play actual devil's advocate here.
You actually think Wisconsin can win?
Well, it's hard to beat a team twice.
That's a good point.
You saw that with Texas and OU last year, and I think you're going to see Ohio State struggle more than they did when they played Wisconsin earlier. This Wisconsin defense is good enough to shut down anybody. You talked about Jonathan Taylor. He's the kind of guy who can go off and have monster games. And so if everything lines up for Wisconsin, they legitimately could pull off the upset. I don't think it's going to happen, but Ohio State needs to come ready to play.
Yeah, and I think Justin Fields is banged up too.
He is banged up. He said he's going to play through. But I just want to remind y'all, you said it's tough to beat a team twice, and I agree with that. But 2005, Texas, a really good football team similar to Ohio State, dominant throughout the season. Texas beats Colorado in the regular season. Conference championship game, anybody know the score?
It was a lot. It was a lot to a little.
70-3. It was 70-3. This Ohio State team is similar as far as just top to bottom, offense, defense, special teams. They're loaded. But again, it's college football. We'll see. Let's head to the SEC championship game. Number 4 Georgia taking on number 2 LSU. To me, I think this could be one of the more lopsided games of championship weekend.
Yeah, I mean, LSU, this is going to be a lot of points, I think, on the board. This isn't going to be like your smash-mouth SEC football anymore.
This is going to be a fun championship game.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, Joe Burrow, I mean, we've seen what the effect of the new offensive coordinator, what that's done to LSU offense. I mean, this is like a completely different from the LSU. Couldn't even score in Alabama for a couple of years in a row. So, yeah, this is an explosive LSU offense, and I think they're going to make enough plays. Georgia will keep it close at times. Jake Fromm will make plays. They got DeAndre Swift in the backfield. But, I mean, this is a Georgia team that lost to South Carolina early in the year. So I think LSU, they know this is a big opportunity for them. And so I think they'll find ways to make plays and win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree there's going to be a lot of points on the board. But I think most of them are going to come from LSU.
Yeah.
This Georgia offense has looked stale for most of the year. And this LSU team, I've been saying this for a long time. They're my favorite to win the national championship. So I got to stick to my guns here. I think it's going to be a pretty lopsided game like you were talking about. I think LSU's kind of going to blow the water out of Georgia.
Yeah, and LSU's defense seemed to find a lot of confidence last week against A&M. Grant Delpit finally playing like the player that people have been talking about before the season. But lastly, let's get to the Big 12. Baylor and Oklahoma, both of these teams really need to not only win, but look good, I would assume, to have a chance at the college football playoff. This is probably the closest prediction-wise. Who do y'all see pulling it out?
Yeah, this is definitely the most intriguing matchup, and I think this is really where it's hard to beat a team twice. I think this is where it really comes in, especially after what went down in Waco with Baylor blowing that big lead. And I think they'll be fired up. They'll be ready to come out and play. Matt Rule, I'm ready. He's done a great job turning that program around here. I mean, a couple of years ago, they lost to Liberty to open their year. So now to be in the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma, I think Charlie Brewer's going to make plays. They have an amazing wide receiver in Denzel Mims. Oklahoma, obviously, Jalen Hurts. Kennedy Brooks goes off, a great running back. And then CeeDee Lamb will stretch the field for them. I think this is going to be a shootout. It's going to be first one to 40 wins. And I could see Baylor pulling it out just because of the second time. And they have a lot of frustration. They're out for revenge after blowing that big lead in Waco.
Yeah, I mean, you made a lot of good points. I think Baylor played OU really well until, they blew the lead. And Oklahoma's been struggling. They have not looked as solid as an offense, especially, as they have in years past. And so I think it's also going to be a close game, kind of a coin flip to figure out who you want to pick.
Yeah, and I do feel like you go back to the last time these teams played. Baylor won the first half. Oklahoma won the second half. This really feels like the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally, I'll give my picks in a little bit, but again, I think it'll be close. Baylor has a knack for close games. OU has struggled a little bit down the stretch. I think if they can find their confidence, if Jalen Hurts can protect the ball, I think it should be a shoo-in for Oklahoma. But again, we'll see what happens. Let's get to a couple different outcomes for the college football playoff. First of all, I think this is what most people are predicting. Ohio State, LSU, Clemson win.
Yep.
So that 4th spot is up for grabs. Do y'all think Utah gets in over both Oklahoma or Baylor, or can one team winning jump over Utah?
I think there's no way that Baylor's jumping over Utah. Oklahoma could, but I think they have to blow the doors off of Baylor, and I think Utah has to really struggle against Oregon. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
I don't think either team can jump over Utah. I mean, if you're asking me, Utah has dominated teams, and if they beat Oregon, they beat somebody who was in or around the top 10 the whole year. So that's a quality win. So I wouldn't put anybody over Utah.
All right, here's another fun scenario. Clemson loses to Virginia. Oregon beats Utah. Baylor beats Oklahoma. So now you have Baylor with 1 loss. You have Clemson with 1 loss. And you have a Virginia team and an Oregon team that have both won their conference championships.
Well, I think Baylor obviously gets in then.
You think Baylor makes it in then?
So I'm assuming Georgia probably loses. If
Georgia loses.
Georgia wins, they would be in that
Georgia
scenario,
wins, yeah.
but if they're losing, they're out. I think, honestly, in that scenario, I think Clemson might end up sliding in there at number 4 just because, I mean, I don't know who else you're going to take with Oklahoma losing, with Utah losing. Like, I mean, Wisconsin, if they lose to Ohio State, like, there's just not enough teams. Yeah, unless you see playoff committee slide Alabama right back in there again.
But now how about if Utah does win and now we have 3 one-loss teams for 2 spots? Does Clemson get in, or does the committee say Clemson lost in the conference championship?
I think Clemson's out. I think that would be too bad of a loss for the resume. They don't have enough quality wins to back it up.
All right, well, Turner and I will be making our picks and our top 4 picks. But Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you stick around, though. James Grant, he has the best record so far throughout the season of celebrity guest pickers. We're going to see if he can keep that going. Stick around. Welcome back into the 1 0 Sports Show. Thanks again for joining us on your Friday morning. And Turner, you know what time it is?
I think it's time for the best thing on Twitter.
It's time for the best thing on Twitter. And it's going to no one else than the man himself, Mack Brown. Following the win against in-state rival NC State to become bowl eligible. Look at that. Look at those moves by old Coach Brown.
Break it down, Mac.
They're lighting the tower blue tonight.
That's right.
They're lighting it blue tonight. Hey. Oh, what it's I think every Longhorn fan has just loved seeing Coach Brown have fun and win some games there in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have him back in college football. And I think it's kind of funny that Texas fans have so many people to root for this year that aren't their own team.
Right, you have Shane Bouchel at SMU, you have Mack Brown.
Doing great. Mack Brown at UNC is doing great. So just best of luck to Coach Brown. We love to see him happy and doing well.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's get to the fantasy football. Start and sit. Who does Turner Barnes / Robert Trevino have starting this week?
I tell you what, Thomas, I think Dallas Goedert versus the Giants, you got to sit him this week. Eagles tight end, Carson Wentz is not playing well. Sit him.
All right, for me, that was your start.
Oh.
That's okay.
Hey, sit him.
He's changing. He's changing it up. Listen to him. Again, Turner Barnes, he might know more than Robert Trevino. Who knows?
Sit him down.
My start, and this is actually a start, is going to be Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry had a slow start to the season, but he has become Baker Mayfield's #1 target. He's replaced Odell Beckham in Cleveland. They're playing the Bengals, who have one of the worst defenses in the league. Go ahead and start this guy. He's caught a touchdown the last couple weeks, at least 6 receptions. He's getting all these targets. You want him on your fantasy roster.
Juicy Jarvis.
Okay, your sit for this week, or I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and do my sit. My sit for this week, because Turner doesn't agree with Robert's picks. My sit's gonna be Marquise Brown, Hollywood. As our friend Gus Johnson would say. And, you know, I talk about Lamar Jackson all day, and Lamar Jackson is great, but they're going against the Bills defense, second best defense against receivers this season. Brown has had some good games, some bad games, but I think what it's going to come down to is the secondary is going to shut him down, and I think we're going to see Lamar Jackson going to Mark Andrews a lot. So if you have Mark Andrews in your lineup, start him because I think that's going to be Lamar Jackson's safety check down.
All right, this may be hot sports opinion, but maybe not. I don't know. You have to sit Drew Brees this week.
Wow.
Drew Brees going against the San Francisco 49ers. Great defense, great team. Drew Brees, you got to sit him because he's not going to have a great game.
Okay.
You know? If you have somebody who's good enough to come in after him.
Right. That's the thing with quarterbacks is if you have, So
you have to have somebody who's at least somewhat competent. Like, for instance, I have Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I'm going to sit Drew Brees. But if you have somebody like Baker Mayfield, maybe keep Drew Brees in your
Although Baker Mayfield this week against the Bengals. Dwayne Haskins is a guy you don't want to start this week.
Yes.
All right, let's get to our, let's head to the board. This is it. Now this is
the one.
Our final predictions for 2019. These are the teams that will be in the college football playoff.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
100%.
Mark it down.
All right, we'll go. We'll switch off.
Starting with 4.
Number 1. No, starting with 1. Starting with 1. LSU. This team. I have been big on this team since they beat Texas. This team, Joe Burrow. We talked about it. The way they beat A&M, a team that had a knack for close game. This team is good.
Thomas, I envy the fact that you get to put LSU at number 1.
Yeah.
But I'm Robert right now, and I have to put Ohio State, the Ohio State University, at number 1. Justin Fields, Chase Young.
They're good.
They're really good.
And that's why I have them at number 2. These teams, I think, by far the best 2 teams in the country. What Ohio State did against Michigan, a team that was trending upwards, was looking to try to get their first win in a while against Ohio State. And they couldn't. Oh, this team, again, and we didn't even mention Chase Young. The guy is in the backfield literally every play. He's unreal.
Yeah, double team him, triple team him, whatever you want. You can't do anything to Chase Young. Number 2 for me is LSU. You got to put these 2 are the top 2.
They're the top 2.
Whatever order you put in, you can argue, but these are the top 2 teams in the country.
Now, we were talking about this team number 3 at Clemson, a sneaky team that you were saying is kind of being slept on for being a defending national champion. This is a team that I think can make waves in the playoffs. That defense, again, number 1 scoring defense in the nation. They're playing good. Granted, it's against the ACC competition.
Yeah, it's against ACC competition, but they have been flat out dominating people. I also have them, or Robert also has them at number 3.
You have them.
I have them at number 3 also. So, like I said, they're being slept on this year, which is really dangerous for a national championship team to come in with people underestimating them. And this is a really good team.
Now, this is the big one. Spot number 4. Now, a lot of people have said, a lot of fans, a lot of teams have tweeted at me and said, please don't put my team at number 4 because former number 4s include Texas, Michigan, almost Wisconsin, but I didn't because I didn't want to print it out. Oregon. Not a great spot to be in.
Not a great.
But I believe in this team. I believe in Utah. I believe that, again, I think whether they're playing Ohio State or LSU, I think it's a lot closer of a game than experts think. I think they're going to give one of these teams a run for their money.
I agree with that spot. I don't like you putting it there, Thomas, but I agree with Utah. Robert says, no. OU.
And the upside down's okay.
OU going in there at number 4, putting it upside down, just because I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Well, in turn, I want to give you props. This board, it took Robert and I a little bit of time to figure it out. 1 week, you got it down. We'll see about OU, but that was Robert's pick. We can't quite blame.
I was gonna switch it up, but it's the final one, so I can't.
But this is it.
Robert.
If you're looking at this, these are the teams that 100% guarantee will be in the playoffs.
Take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank, and when we return, we've been teasing it all show. James Grant, he went 8-2 last time he was picking. He'll be back picking all the conference games, and Texas A&M, they're playing again. That's right. Stay tuned. And for the last time in the year 2019, welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show. Now joining us, legendary.
Good to be back with the boys, man. I'm looking forward to it.
James, take a cowboy hat.
Oh, there we go.
Big tag.
Howdy, partners.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all had to round me up before Christmas break. So I'm back. Let's do it.
All right, so before we get into our picks, let's take a look at the updated records. Not a great week for Robert or myself. 3-6-1 for both of us. I still have a good enough lead that Turner, it's all on you. If you can make a comeback, you need to win big.
I got you, Robert.
and James, obviously, you know the only person you're competing with is yourself.
That's right. I'm just trying to build off, what I started.
You went 8-2 last time. But this time it's a little different. These are all outright. We'll have the spreads up on the board just so you can see, but we're going to be picking these outright because it's conference championship week. So we might as well do that. So let's start. First game, number 5, Utah against number 13, Oregon. Tonight, who do you have?
This one, I really love Justin Herbert. I think he's been great over his career at Oregon. I think, though, you look at Utah, this game is going to come down to the offensive and defensive lines.
Yeah.
Really, Utah's defensive line, Oregon's offensive line, a lot of veterans. But I think Tyler Huntley's the difference. They got 3 dynamic playmakers on that offense. I'm going to go Utes. And actually a pretty, I'll say a blowout in this one.
A blowout for the Utes. All right. I'm also going to say Utah. I think Zach Moss is going to be the difference maker in this game. Utah wins.
Let's make it 3 Utahs. I got them up on the board, but I do think a lot of people are counting Oregon out. So I think because of that, Oregon's to make it a little closer than people think, but still, Utah gets the win.
All right, next game, number 21, Appalachian State, 6-point favorites over Louisiana. Picking it outright. Who wins?
I'm going to go App State. Yeah, shout out the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. We love y'all.
Good pick. Good pick. Look, Appalachian State has been dominant all year, and they keep that going on Saturday.
All right, Robert, I'm going to try and catch you up. Give me Louisiana with the upset. Louisiana.
Cajuns.
All right, Mountain West Championship, number 19, Boise State hosting Cole McDonald and the Hawaii Warriors. James, can Hawaii pull off the upset?
They can put points on the board, but it won't be enough to beat the Broncos. I'm going to take Boise State.
I think that's a very great way of putting it. Hawaii's going to put up points on the board, but so is Boise State, and they're going to have more.
I've been talking about Hank Bachmeier all season, the quarterback, the freshman quarterback for Boise State.
Hammer and Hank.
They're not only going to win now, this is a Boise State team to watch out for the next 3 years because Bachmeier is legit.
All right, number 17, Memphis, 9-point favorite over number 20, Cincinnati in the American Conference.
AAC.
American Athletic Conference. Who takes it?
So these teams just played last Saturday in Memphis, and I think the Tigers are going to defend home field again. I got Memphis winning. Their offense too explosive for Cincinnati. I do like Luke Fickell, what he's done there, but give me Memphis in this one.
Not so fast, no.
Come on.
Not so fast. Cincinnati, they want revenge. They want to be in a New Year's Six bowl game.
Hard to beat a team twice.
It's hard to beat a team. It's hard to beat a team twice.
Give me Cincinnati.
But if anybody can do it, it's Memphis. Memphis coming home with the W.
I don't know if anybody's ever said if anybody can do it, it's Memphis. But let's move on to the ACC championship game. Number 3 Clemson against number 23 Virginia. Pretty big spread, 28.5. That's a big spread for a conference championship game. But again, we're picking outright. We wanted to go out with some good records.
Yeah.
James, who do you have in this one?
As a Gamecock, it pains me to pick Clemson, but
pick the upset. Pick the upset.
I can't see unless Bryce Perkins has a Heisman game. I don't see Virginia hanging around in this one. Clemson too much. I'm gonna take the Tigers.
I'm kind of upset we're just picking outright because I was going to do this huge build-up and then pick Clemson with the spread anyway.
Wow.
Clemson's going to blow this game out.
I actually think Virginia might cover this 28.5-point spread, but Clemson's not losing this one.
No, they deserve to be in it at this point.
All right, the number 1 team in the country, Ohio State, taking on Wisconsin again. Number 8 this time. Who takes it?
I like Adam was talking about, or actually you were talking earlier, it's hard to beat a team twice, and that stuck with me. And, Wisconsin, they have the run game to control the game and the defense, obviously, to shut down a guy like Justin Fields. However, Ohio State, to me, they're the best team in the country. I'm going to go Buckeyes.
Chase Young is a maniac. Justin Fields is a maniac.
Yeah.
J.K. Dobbins is a maniac. Ohio State wins.
All right, if I don't start making bold predictions now for you, Robert, you're never going to catch up. So I, Turner Barnes, pick Ohio State.
Wow.
But Robert's going with Wisconsin.
Wow.
Go Badgers.
All right, in the Big 12, Oklahoma against Baylor in Arlington. Who pulls it out?
Sick and Bears, baby. They're going to make it happen. Look, I think Baylor has been playing a lot better than OU lately. And I already picked Clemson, so I already went against one of my alma maters. We'll say. I'm not going to do it again. I'm going to go Baylor. Bears take care of business. And, Oklahoma just hadn't been that impressive lately. So
You see, Thomas, Oklahoma is a blue blood team. Baylor's not a blue blood team. Give me Oklahoma. I've had them at number 4 for a while. Oklahoma is going to the big college football championship.
Good pick. Oklahoma wins, but it's not going to be enough for the college football championship.
All right, number 2 LSU Tigers versus number 4 Georgia. Who do you got, James?
Well, this is a home field advantage for Georgia, and normally I would say, okay, I think they're gonna. This one is tough though. I really think LSU, Joe Burrow. It's been what a season he's had. Georgia's out. They got a receiver out. George Pickens for the first half. Lawrence Cager out the whole game. So even a 100% Bulldogs team, I'd still take LSU. So they won't be 100% obviously. So I'm gonna stick with the Tigers.
You know, I've picked all the favorites so far in this show, but that's not going to change because I got LSU at number 1.
All right, there.
Go Tigers.
All right. I'm sorry, Robert. I'm sorry if this backfires on me. I'm trying to catch you up. Give me the Georgia Bulldogs for Robert.
Wow.
Lock it in. I'm just trying to catch him up, guys. You got to go. You got to go big on the last one.
All right. Before we get to our final game, this basketball matchup, we're going to finish off with NFL Sunday night Seahawks at the Rams.
Seahawks. Russell Wilson, what can you say? The guy's been balling out, so he's going to keep it up.
Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks are the Rams have been struggling all year. Seahawks have been really good. Look for them maybe in the Super Bowl.
Let's make it 3. Go Seahawks.
All right, in the last game we're going to be picking Texas A&M.
The only reason that there's an Aggie hat on this set.
Only
basketball.
reason.
Basketball. Let's make that clear.
Of
Let's
course.
make that clear.
In Fort Worth. Who do you got, James?
Hook 'em horns, baby. We're gonna build. Why would I pick A&M at this point? They lost to Harvard. I mean, come on.
This is an ugly hat. Get it off the set.
Get
it off the set. Give me that long one now. One more time. One more time, Turner.
All right, they're wrapping me up, but I have to rub this in.
Can I give you the hat?
I have to rub this in a little bit. Texas A&M has lost to Harvard, Temple, and Fairfield 3 games in a row. Give me the horns. Hook 'em horns. Shaka Smart's going to bring them home the W.
All right, that's all we have. James, thanks so much for joining us. And thank you, everybody who's tuned in to us this semester. Just got to give a shout out to Josh Martell, who's directing in studio, Christine Taylor, our other sports director, and everybody else who has helped out for this show. Again, for everybody in studio and Master Control, I'm Thomas Fitch, joined alongside by Turner Barnes. Have a good break.